At this specific engine size and weight and power output, short of the V-Strom 800 road bias bike, there's nothing available in Japan that's really a sport tourer. For about 8 months, I've been floating the idea of possibly putting a 19-inch rim on the front of this and more road bias tires and building a slightly more manageable, potentially more reliable SMT, similar to KTM. If as a city dweller you're biased towards getting out to nature on the weekend, Osaka is far better than Tokyo. If, as a human being, you're biased towards gainful employment and opportunity, Kansai is difficult. Not impossible, but difficult. Ooh. Some front wheel slide. Honda's notorious grip angle is a hilarious how much throttle you're spinning. If it was more like a lean angle measurement, that'd be cool, but I can say from a rough estimate, a lot of these turns I'm not going much further than 20 degrees of lean, whereas in the past I've scraped pegs on this bike. That was more than 20 degrees, but be assured this is not peg scraping weather or roads. Some of the towns that I'm passing, I remember 4 years ago, they were completely abandoned. There were signs. I didn't look for them this time, but I don't imagine anyone's moved back into them. Bike does sound good. I do wonder how much longer these roads will be here. One advantage of everything being abandoned, not many people using the road and wearing it out. A disadvantage is coming around a corner and discovering earthquake damage. It's never going to be repaired. I found that in Nagano too. In Nara, more often than you would think. Just abandoned towns where the road fell off a cliff. Even in nice weather, when it's warm and dry and perfect roads, the 50/50 tires that I'm using, for off-road capable tires, they're good. For street tires, I don't trust them. If I had the money for a dual sport, I would definitely switch to the Michelin road tires. I guess someone is maintaining these roads because it fell off a cliff. As I just said it. If I had an enduro bike, this would be getting a 19-inch front rim. Even at these moderate speeds and conditions, yeah, I like sport tours. I like the steering lock of this bike. On the street, the engine's a peach. Spoke wheels. Could always re-spoke to my own DIY KTM SMT. Honda 755 SMT. An alternative question would be if I could ever find used Hornet wheels, which would be tough because the made in Japan 750 Hornet is not sold in Japan, so I wonder if they would fit this bike. Comment below if you know the answer and I'll pin your comment. My dream sport tourer might be coming to life. But then if I wanted to continue to meander a little closer to still being somewhat an ADV bike, the Africa Twin Adventure Sport keeps the 18-inch rear and switches to a 19-inch front. And I've not had the chance to ride one, but my understanding is the road manners are worlds ahead of the standard Africa Twin, or the previous Adventure Sport with the 21 in the front. Priorities. Is your adventure bike a road bike first? Or do you pretend you're on an enduro? That was both wheels sliding. A glass half full, half empty argument. I have said many times, and I 100% still believe, when people say this is a very good road bike, it is for a 21-inch front wheel. It does not feel like a 19, like some have said. I've ridden enough 19-inch front wheels. This is not that. It's close, but it's not that. Half full argument is that in these imperfect conditions, it is dissuading me from the most reckless possible riding. so that these little slides I've had have been in a mostly upright counterleaning situation. This is what I was hoping the roads would look more like. Largely dry, moderate debris. See, here's the trick. In the middle of nowhere, because I have a slightly dirt-capable bike, it's tempting. But cell service is very low, and I'm alone. Part of me thinks it's better to just be on a bike that can't, to not tempt. Beware of bears, and don't feed them. Who's feeding bears on purpose? 4 degrees Celsius, which I believe is just below 40 Fahrenheit. In my 6-month review, I did come at it with a fair bit of pessimism. But if Honda sold this with a 1917 wheel combination, I would never consider selling this bike. This is the kind of road I was thinking about. It's a tight enough winding road that 80 kilometers an hour, 50 miles an hour feels plenty fast. It's fast and tight enough that you can push your limits, because I prefer to be at a moderate speed, fully leaned over, than chasing these crazy mega speeds, pretending I'm on a racetrack. If it was a little warmer, a little drier, I could probably scrape pegs here. I actively don't own knee sliders, because it'd be far too tempting. The current tires, the current wheel size, current suspension, the current road conditions, I'm feeling just the smallest bit of slip to say I'm at the limit of what the bike could do. If I was on Michelin Road 6s, a slightly more favorable wheel size, boy. And in my past, I've had some big wrecks on the pavement and small ones. And I've had some moderate tumbles in the dirt. So I think I have a pretty good perspective of what pushing my limits can mean from a safety perspective. But still, if I had to pick one, dirt focus this bike or road focus, I am having a very good time right now. He was on my side. Comparison is the problem. If I'd only ever ridden this type of bike, these type of wheels, and this kind of tires, is this performing handsomely well for the conditions. But because I've owned sport bikes and sport tours, I guess time would tell if I'm wrong, but I'm sure a video like this is going to do a lot worse than any of my dirt riding videos, because it's just not the interest that people have. They're far more interested in dirt riding because that's what the algorithm has taught us to want. Despite, to the Transalp owners out there, I am relatively confident that 98% of you would relate better to this than to most of my dirt riding videos. For the average rider, and not the most popular rider on YouTube, but the real average, 1917 is a much smarter setup. There's a reason the best-selling adventure bike, the BMW GS, consistently holds on to their 1917 combination. The internet makes the customer demand a bike in droves. They may not actually be what they're looking for. Not that Honda listens to customer reviews. See 2025. My battery died. I figured let's just finish this video by talking to the bike. If I was to make this a road-only bike, this would be the same crash bars I want, because if you go down, you still want to protect your bike. Between that and the handguards, it'd definitely be enough for a flat road slide. It's been enough for dirt falls plenty of times. You got to think about how much you lose on trade-ins over and over to find the perfect bike. Even if you do expensive mods, if you really keep it for a long time, it's worth it. And if I did full Öhlins, this would have better suspension than anything that I would consider owning. So if I was to continue building this into my perfect bike, switching the rims out, even taking the cost-effective approach that's still quality, Takasago's Excel rims, even if I did 17 and 17, Volks rims everything $800, including sourcing some new ABS rings to trick the computer into thinking we haven't changed anything. And then I would have a real weapon of a bike. I'm still saving money against, say, getting a Tracer or the new Tiger. I like the ergonomics of this bike possibly better than any bike I've ever sat on. Everything I've done to this bike, forgetting the tires, in hindsight I actually still would have done. If I was saying buy a bike, except that you have to put a bunch of stuff in it, I think this is actually still the right bike for me. If I was to say I'm buying a road touring bike, because I love this engine size, somewhere between 700 and 800 is really good for me. I like the Japanese reliability, the big oil sump, the long touring range. I like the stock seat. I find it plenty comfortable enough. Not Goldwing, but not sport bike. Not quite a V-Strom 650. But the way it carries the weight low, maybe if I just do suspension, go back to the road-focused stock tires or Michelin Anarchy Adventures, maybe I don't need to do wheel sizes and I still get what I want. And then I still get to look cool in front of my barista. The last thing I'm going to say is just to ask a question. 1.5 centimeters were the chicken strips on the rear, and nearly none on the front. Like, I'm going to run out of grip on the front if I push too much harder. They're the same maker. They're both Motos Tractionators, an Adventure, and a GPS. I am curious about that. As far as that road review goes, switching to a Sport Tourer would lose me more money than switching out the wheels, full suspension, and new tires. Comment below. I never delete comments. I never block comments. I would appreciate if you just politely disagree. Don't call me a racial slur, which surprisingly happens often. Let me know where you agree, where you disagree. Let me know what I got wrong. I get out of the warranty period and then just go crazy with it and make a truly... I do believe I can make my perfect bike more than there is one for me to buy. If you know wheels that could fit this instead of respoking, or if you know what ABS ring can I buy if I switch this to a 19 or that to a 17, what ABS ring would convince the computer that I didn't do it? Give me your feedback. I will still acknowledge comments that make me lose sleep over their rudeness. Bye bye.